Tonight, one trial, one legal question, and one study about how it got reported.
This is the particulars.
Welcome back. I'm Lacey. I run a licensed PI firm, and I'm also a law student.
I'm Nick. Everything tonight is our opinion and analysis based on the public record. We are not attorneys, and nothing here is legal advice. Everything has been verified as of 5:30 Eastern Time today.
Quick note before we start, since we teased this on socials, tonight's the first night of a new format. So it's the same sourcing, same depth. We're just tightening the structure.
4 segments every episode: the trial watch, a legal minute, evidence of the night, and a red flag. If a story needs more room, it gets more room inside that structure. We're not padding runtime just to hit a number.
And one thing that isn't changing, this show has always been about walking the case with you, not just telling you what happened, but showing how you know what happened and how to read a docket, how to spot a citation, and how to notice when 2 outlets are telling you 2 different things.
So comment, ask questions, push back on us if you want. That's the point. We're not just reporting the news. We're teaching you how to read it yourself.
So we're going to go ahead and get into it. We're going to call this moving forward. This will be the segment 1, which is our anchor, and it's the trial watch. So we talked about that last live, and how for the foreseeable future right now, it'll be the Lindsay Clancy case. However, when that ends, a new trial will take its place.
Mm-hmm.
So a quick reminder for anyone just joining, and a callback for anyone who caught episode 8, where we first walked through this. Lindsay Clancy is on trial for the deaths of her 3 children. She's never disputed that she caused their deaths. The entire fight is over her mental state under Massachusetts, quote, lack of criminal responsibility, end quote, standard. The formal name for what people usually call an insanity defense. It asks whether, because of a mental disease or defect, she lacked the substantial capacity to appreciate that what she was doing was wrong, or to conform her conduct to the requirements of law. In plainer terms, to control her actions even if she understood them. Yeah,
jury selection concluded yesterday. 18 jurors were impaneled, formally seated for service, 12 who will deliberate, and have 6 alternates. They haven't been sworn in yet. Opening statements are set for Monday morning at 9. And multiple outlets are now reporting the trial itself is expected to run 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah, and we're going to come back to that as our final segment for the night on how we do our reporting and things like that. But worth knowing going in, once lack of criminal responsibility is sufficiently raised, the Commonwealth has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she was criminally responsible, that she had both the substantial capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct and the substantial capacity to conform her conduct to the requirements of law. The defense doesn't have to prove she lacked that.
A few motions moved since Wednesday. The Commonwealth's motion to exclude, block from being introduced at trial, undisclosed defense expert witnesses was allowed Monday. Though the defense can revisit it during trial. Still open, a motion on jury instructions. And a defense motion in
limine? I literally put how to say it.
Oh, pronounced in limine, Latin for at the threshold.
I did that for you. You like that?
Yeah, I did. A request asking the judge to decide whether certain evidence can come in before the trial even starts, asking to limit the number of first responder witnesses.
Yeah, the other major development, Patrick Clancy, the children's father, filed a request last week asking the court to restrict public access to 5 categories of evidence: the 911 call, pre-incident photos, crime scene photos, autopsy photos, and the children's clothing.
The judge ruled today, confirmed the 911 recording and the autopsy photographs are impounded, sealed from public release. The order doesn't stop the jury, attorneys, or courtroom spectators from seeing or hearing the evidence during trial. Media can report on the contents, but cannot record, display, or reproduce the materials themselves.
You, Nick.
Yeah.
Do you think this is going to be a 6 to 8 week trial, or do you think it's going to be shorter, longer?
Well, there's a couple facets to this trial that make it a little bit different. One being that there's a whole separate system that's being used to determine whether she was in the right state of mind.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because that is the defense. That is ultimately the defense, right? So it's not just a typical murder trial.
Right.
Because that will make a determination whether or not they can actually charge murder one. Ultimately. And if
my nose is running.
And I know that it's a game that defenses play, and they're trying to get the best defense for her. That's their job.
Yeah.
However, I don't think that there is going to be a ruling on whether she had the state of mind to be able to commit premeditated murder in this situation because of the circumstances. So therefore, things are going to get pushed out. They're going to ask for motions of and time enlargements for a lot of different things, simply because the defense wants a ruling on whether or not she was capable.
The first biggest thing when it comes to this specific case is it's not necessarily the state. It is what is referred to as the Commonwealth. So
Right.
It operates a little bit different anyways. But what we had talked about and I don't remember, I guess it was episode 8 because that was our first trial watch night. That was night 1. So we talked about it's an either or test from the defendant's perspective. Both capacities burden for the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth must prove that she had both the capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct and the capacity to conform her conduct to the requirements of law. So if the jury has reasonable doubt about either one, the Commonwealth hasn't proven criminal responsibility. So that's where I think it's kind of going to be a little bit different, how it's almost like it's a 2-track trial, so to speak.
Yeah, and it is a 2-track trial. You're not wrong there at all. What I get from this though is it's another way of pleading insanity.
Well, it is their version, yes,
but it makes it sound like it's not like you're trying to plead insanity, because insanity pleas are almost never won.
Yeah,
they're almost never given.
Very hard to prove that, actually. So
they're trying to make it sound different when ultimately that's what it is. You're proving that you didn't have the mind capability to commit those.
Go ahead and throw that word out there, because I just love having that.
No, I'm not going to say. I didn't say it. You did. You shunned me for saying it last time.
That's just that word. Ugh. Okay. Well.
Anyways, this is just a little discussion. We wanted to hopefully get a little bit of your input in the chat, whether or not you think this will last 6 to 8 weeks. My personal opinion, not even close. This is going to be months.
Okay.
And this is going to be probably 6 to 8 months, not weeks.
So I did a little bit of digging today, okay? And I did bring I came prepared, all right? So I did a couple of things that I really wanted to kind of put out there to elicit the discussion, basically. So you don't just get to sit there and listen. You have to participate, okay? So unusual Massachusetts rule. So the judge isn't required to define mental disease or defect for the jury at all. Courts have held that spelling it out risks confusing or misleading jurors more than it helps. And that's actually from the Commonwealth versus, I'm going to say, Schleich-Broder.
Yeah, it's from case law in the Commonwealth.
And then also Commonwealth versus Fuller. So that was a case from 2010 and a case from 1995.
Yeah.
And then the defense's actual diagnosis per, and and I'm going to say Zangari's review of the civil complaint, bipolar disorder 1, severe with psychosis and anxious distress, postpartum onset with the violence precipitated by manic psychosis, including compelling command hallucinations. So you're going to hear us talk about this. This is actually, I found this very interesting. So, because we had kind of discussed this a little bit in episode 8.
Lacey found that postpartum psychosis affects 1 or 2 in 1,000.
Nope, say it exactly how it's written.
Yeah,
because
1 or 2 in 1,000.
8,000 is actually how it is quoted, sir.
Okay, it's quoted 1 or 2 in 1,000.
Per the source's exact wording, and untreated cases carry about a 4% infant.
Nope.
I didn't put this
Infanticide.
There you go. Source is Alexandria Alford, and it's actually a whole bunch of other people, but it's a systematic review of postpartum psychosis resulting in... You're lost?
Infanticide.
There you go.
Come on.
Women's mental health. That was published in 2025.
It's a made up word they used for clinical postpartum psychosis. That's all it is.
That is not what that is.
Infanticide rate.
Do you not know what
killing your
is?
Oh yeah. Okay. That's terrible. That's a horrible word.
You acted like you didn't know what it meant.
No, it's a horrible word.
Okay. Well, anyways, I digress. So basically, I'm going to play with this all night because it doesn't really...
How about you just don't touch it?
It falls.
It's not moving.
I'm going to... Okay.
Oh, gosh. So how prosecutors build a predetermination or premeditation case specifically to rebut a mental state defense... They tie in the 168 prosecution witnesses reported at the May status conference. So they just bring in tons and tons and tons of witnesses. That's how they reviewed it.
So I went back and forth again. This is, I think, so we do a rough run script. So all of the source citations and things like that, the direct quotes, all of that I put in a document that we follow along with throughout our live shows. This is version, I think, 9.
We were making versions of this like 10 minutes ago.
So I was still fact checking and cross verifying. For example, when we went in here and I put the quote in here about I cannot say postpartum. When I put that postpartum psychosis effects, I literally went back and forth on how I was going to actually put it in there. And I was like, okay, details matter. So we made it the direct quote from the study, which the study, if anyone is interested in it, I actually have the PDF version of that. And I can, if you reach out to me, I can get you a copy of it because it is a very, very interesting read. And I wanted to, because I was I don't want to say I was making claims, but I was discussing it in episode 8 and I thought, you know what? I really need to back this up. There's got to be some kind of documentation. And that's when I actually was able to find this one. So very, very interesting. And looking at that from like a forensic psychology lens, okay? There's a couple of things. So substantial capacity and appreciate wrongfulness. So that's clinically versus legally. So that's the difference when we start talking about things. There are, in this case, you will see, I think, a lot of specific terms used where it's going to be interesting to see how they do it. I honestly, it's just going to be a lot of medical. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But the legal source is the same. We talked about it last time, Macau, and that, language above. The clinical framing reads as a forensic psychology trained PI. So when I'm reading things, I'm looking at it from both angles. I don't know. I feel like it's the clinical side. I think we've already seen it. I know that most people are going to TikTok and YouTube and even Facebook. And a lot of this that we're seeing right now, there was a TikTok that I saw where it's just a lady reading off, because a lot of the information that's coming out right now is from the civil cases. And so people are picking it up and they're literally reading it like line for line, like her diagnoses and things like that. And so I think it's going to start paving a path that this case is going to...
Like I said, 6 to 8 months.
Months?
Yeah. Trial's going to be 6 to 8 months.
I don't think it's going to be that long. I will say there was,
You're trying to prove, and you're trying to get a jury to believe that a woman had the right state of mind to kill her children.
Prosecution, or in this case, we will refer to it as the Commonwealth, they are trying to pull into the trial a bunch of witnesses. And roughly, it looks like there's like 168 people on their list, which is the first responder. Can I talk tonight? First responders, investigators, forensic experts, 168 people, roughly. Can I give you a direct quote because I do not have that documentation right in front of me. The defense also includes an additional like 50. So when Nick's saying like 6 to 8 months, I think that's a stretch. However, I do find 6 to 8 weeks seems short on when we're looking at the amount of witnesses that they're potentially going to bring. And the reason I say that, Jess, is they talked about that. The defense talked about that when they were discussing these motions, because Patrick Clancy, the dad, has been specific about some things. And so the Commonwealth is presenting other things, and they're saying, hey, it was, 3 individuals, plus they had the defendant herself. And then, Patrick was technically involved. So there's all these different people that, like, first responders were tending to all of those different people. That's a lot of people that were there, and they are wanting to put all of those witness statements, like testimonies, at trial. So that's kind of where that's coming from. Right. Nobody was there. These were all like, because actually he got back to the house, and that's when he like calls 911, and then all these first responders show up and they start calling other people. And so it's a very chaotic scene, and they are trying to, take care of all of the different people. So there was a lot of people at the scene, and I know that they want to kind of call all of those witnesses in. So that's what's kind of up for debate right now. And I want to say it was like, if I remember correctly.
Well, and it's going to be a ton of character witnesses too.
Yeah, it was like, I think the defense was arguing that they didn't need, and I don't want to say this, but I think it's 15. They were saying there was like 15 first responders. And the defense was basically kind of saying, hey, we don't necessarily need this because they're all going to kind of have the same story. But then the Commonwealth was saying, no. Then the judge actually,
Jess posed a good question. How would all the witnesses help the case? Most likely, even though you're dealing with postpartum depression and you're going and seeing all of these specialists because you have these issues, what do you show your friends? What do you show the people that see you in public? What face do you show? Do you show that face in public? No, you don't. It's in private.
So
that's what the character witnesses are going to be.
Yes.
They're going to show that, oh no, she came to the store and she was talking fine, she was normal. That's what the character witnesses are going to be. Plain and simple.
Yes, you do have your character witnesses. You will probably have, which again, expert witnesses. Then you have your witnesses. So like we discussed on episode 8, where
it's going to be anybody who talked to her.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, they're not contesting that. They're contesting right now that they don't want, the defense does not want all the first responders testifying. And the whole point that they were kind of arguing with is that
it's too sensitive. And
Yes,
it's too
because it's
prejudicial to the jury hearing about
because
it all the time.
If you have, in theory, 15 people that get up on the stand and they're recounting their version of what happened,
What they saw
over and over and over again. Now, the judge was basically saying, how can he rule that they all, because basically it's an offer of proof, is so with this, again,
all you really need to do is have one or two of the investigators go up there as witnesses.
But what,
and then,
can I finish my statement?
I'm just saying,
What I'm trying to get across, the Commonwealth is basically saying the way they have to do is they have to prove that she was the one that did this to each individual child. And so it's kind of the same thing, a burden of proof type deal. Is it, it's kind of the same concept. Well, this person committed this act against this person,
but she's
or whatever.
not contesting that she killed them.
What I'm saying is that was the Commonwealth, when they got up and they debated theirself, they were like, we have all of these people that these people, the witnesses interacted with, they all have a different story. And the judge is saying, I can't rule on this because I haven't heard what these people are going to say. However, if we get one or two or three witnesses in and they all have the same offer of proof, then we don't need to continue down this line. And he was basically saying at that point, hey, we don't have to continue to just put person after person after person up that's saying the same exact thing. But considering he doesn't know right now what they're going to say, he can't rule that only one or two or three or four witnesses is needed out of the 15.
This is, to me, this is my opinion. This is just the type of person I am, and that's fine. This doesn't need to be a trial.
I know we have difference of opinion.
Hey, I understand that postpartum depression is very real. I understand that people, they go through periods in their lives that are very, very difficult, but you strangled your kids and then you tried to kill yourself. You wanted to die, so put her to death. That's it. This doesn't need to be a drawn out trial to spend taxpayer dollars. Sorry. She evidently didn't get the help. It's not a problem of, okay, she killed her kids and tried to kill herself. It's a problem of she wasn't helped.
Okay, I agree with that, yes. But what I'm going to stop you on, and I'm going to say, if point blank at this point, how do you know that she is the one that killed her children?
She hasn't contested it.
And?
What do you mean, and?
You don't have to say I'm guilty. You don't have to say I'm innocent.
She hasn't contested it.
It doesn't matter if she contested it or not. They have to prove she did it. Sir, that is
okay.
The way.
That's fine.
So yes, there does need to be a trial because in my eyes, they have to prove that she did it.
But she's
in all honesty,
she's pleading not guilty because she didn't have the mind to be able to commit those crimes. If you plead not guilty,
because if we believe,
like I say,
if we believe what so far has come out, when the husband returns home, he doesn't notice anyone. No one is anywhere. That he, in his immediate areas where he would go, like living room, kitchen, bedrooms, whatever.
The mom has slit wrists and she's out the second floor balcony window or whatever.
She's on the ground outside, yes. Yeah. And then he finds his children in the basement.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I understand.
There is no.
It could be him just telling a story and he's actually the one that did all of it.
It has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
I understand, but that's not the case.
You don't know.
That's my opinion. Keeping since Wednesday. Everything we've got now lives in one place. Our link tree. Link is in our bio. Schedule. Coffee. Ko-fi. I don't know. The merch store. Every social. One link. Easiest way to find us. Our link tree. Speaking of the store, we've now got both stickers live, plus our first t-shirt. The Clear as Mud Dictionary Tee. We got our first orders this week. Genuinely, thank you. Thank you to whoever grabbed one. We appreciate it. It's going to support everything that we do here on Casewalker and the particulars.
You got to order them so you can sport them around.
Round of updates on cases we're tracking. First, Nolan Wells. Some of you will remember we first introduced attorney Ben Crump's involvement back in episode 6 when he was arranging a joint inspection of Wells's phone with the family. Now, Crump has announced results of an independent autopsy performed by Dr. Roger Mitchell. Cause and manner of death are listed as undetermined pending investigation. The exam found a discoloration on the back of the head, roughly 12 by 8 inches, but no skull fracture and no lacerations. And the report notes that decomposition hasn't been ruled out as of the cause of that discoloration. Portions of the throat weren't available for examination, so a neck injury also hasn't been ruled out either. No toxicology results were included in that report.
In the Siders family case out of Vinton County, Ohio, we walked the full docket on this one back on episode 5, including the bill of particulars filing, which is the defense formally asking the state to spell out the specific facts behind the charge. Tonight's update, still no grand jury indictment. Several things worth adding to what we told you on episode 5. Gary Sider Sr.'s bond has already been modified to recognizance only due to a serious medical condition. He is on a GPS monitor. The court has also ordered an evaluation to determine both his competency to stand trial and whether he's not guilty by reason of insanity. The same standard we've been talking about all night with Lindsay Clancy. Christina Siders filed a motion for a dissemination order back on the 16th, and the docket shows an order was actually entered on this past Thursday, the 23rd. We don't have the content of that order yet, just that one exists. Elizabeth Siders' motion to modify her own bond filed back on the 8th still shows no ruling, and brand new as of today, Gary Siders Jr. filed a motion for leave to file documents under seal. We don't know yet what those documents are. I was literally doing a bunch of docket pulls at about 8:30 tonight. I am still in the process of going through all document pulls that I did at 8:30. So they will be any specifics that I feel are pertinent. I will include those on our Monday night episode.
On the Tate brothers, if you missed who they even are, we give a full background on episode 7. Tonight's just an update. They remain in federal detention in Miami. Their next hearing is Monday, this coming Monday, July 27th, the same day Lindsay Clancy's opening statements begin. British authorities now allege a combined 59 counts against the Tate brothers across the UK and Romania. Marley Kinney and Cameron Conley. We pulled this docket ourselves in episode 8 and reported his arraignment date live. That arraignment happened as scheduled, and the case is moving forward. It wasn't dismissed. The next event on the docket is a pretrial conference, September 30th.
And on that note, please keep in mind that those two cases are separate. So Marley Kinney's case is separate from Cameron Conley. Cameron Conley was charged with boating under the
This was the girl that disappeared at the lake, and they found her.
boating under the influence, or I don't remember exactly how they
Grayson
said.
Lake in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's not the same case. They're not even really connected. It's just that she was on the boat that
he got charged with boating under the influence.
When I say that his case is moving forward, that is just his boating under the influence case.
Right.
It is not
her death
in
case.
any relation to her. That is a separate case. And there, to my knowledge, from what I've been able to find or have not been able to find, there is no more public movement on her case.
With hers, it's a death investigation still.
Correct. My update on cases that are still continuing, Nancy Guthrie. We covered her case back on our very first episode and gave an update on episode 6. No movement on the disappearance itself tonight. Derek Kalia, maybe that's how you say that, I don't know. The man who sent the fake ransom note is still set for sentencing September 10th in front of Judge Heindraker after his guilty plea. Nothing new to report here, but mentioning it for transparency. So
we are moving on to segment 2.
the legal minute. So Kentucky's new statewide camera law. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear signed House Bill 58 into law this year. 2026 Kentucky Acts, Chapter 71.
The law sets a general 90-day retention ceiling on automated license plate readers, ALPRs, data, with some exceptions for active investigations, and requires public agencies using stationary readers to maintain location lists that are available through Kentucky's Open Records Act. It had 23 sponsors, led by Representative John Hodgson. Now, Newport is in Kentucky. Okay. Their town, their city, is already tighter with a 30-day retention than the new state floor, confirmed directly. Newport Police Department Captain Drohan told LINK, Northern Kentucky, and WCPO, the city's contract sets a 30-day retention inside the state's 90-day cap under House Bill 58. What does that tell viewers about how local versus state privacy rules actually stack?
And I think I need to put in a caveat there, because in theory, if we're thinking about this, if we're thinking about any random place, okay, and this is the flock cameras, and basically what it's just this evolving, we've talked about it every episode, but with this in particular, I thought it was interesting because if we think about placement of these cameras, so if we're talking about like a rural, like really small town, may or may not have flock cameras.
Yeah.
Okay. The amount of, because if we are just capturing the license plate or the rear of the vehicle as it passes by, the amount of data stored on, so to speak,
servers
for that specific camera is probably a lot less than, say, if we're talking about one in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So are we, I mean, with what we're seeing is a blanket. So say like for Kentucky, they just give it a 90-day.
Yeah.
As someone who now, like I said, I spent last week, I think it was, I was almost out of storage space on my desktop. So I had to go through and delete a whole bunch because I was like, I don't want to buy an external hard drive and I don't really want to make the jump just yet.
Buy
to
t-shirts
Mac.
so we can get an external hard drive for her.
Well, I was looking through some of the stuff and I was like, I really don't know if I want to make that purchase right now because I think there's stuff I could delete. And of course there was. I started deleting and then I just got in this like spree of deleting stuff. So there may or may not be things missing from my computer that I need. I'm just saying, if we're just allowing these companies to have this data indefinitely, does that potentially pose a risk that, you know, if it's on there forever, it increases the likelihood that it could be
and that's what gets argued
stolen
in court and all of that kind
so
of
there's
stuff.
a lot that goes into that. Our next segment, which is exciting, is our new segment, Evidence of the Night. JonBenét Ramsey stories converged this month, and only one of them is about the case everyone thinks it's about.
First, Netflix confirmed a scripted series, The Murder of JonBenét Ramsey, starring Melissa McCarthy and Clive Owen, moving over from Paramount Plus with a winter of 2026 release. They're looking for this winter.
We talked about that in a former episode,
Yep.
and I'm not going to quote which episode because I can't remember. I've slept since then.
Second,
And this is the real story. Former Colorado Bureau of Investigation forensic analyst Yvonne Missy Woods, who was on the original 1996 Ramsey forensic team, pleaded guilty on June 23rd to 4 felonies: cybercrime, perjury, which is lying under oath, and influencing a public servant, and forgery.
Her misconduct prompted a review that identified more than 1,000 potential impacted cases spanning from 2008 to 2023. Sentencing is set for September 8th. 8 to 16 years mandatory.
To be clear, we have not found evidence that Woods altered the Ramsey evidence itself. The connection is that she worked on the original 1996 forensic team. The broader scandal raises questions about institutional trust, not a proven link to this specific case.
Wild. This has been going on since we were kids. That's what's crazy.
So I'm going to go ahead and put this out there. Why a scandal like this matters, even when it doesn't touch your specific case. What does it do to public trust in forensic labs generally?
Her misconduct led to her being found guilty of cybercrimes, perjury, lying under oath, influencing a public servant, and forgery. She was on the forensic team in 1996 during the JonBenét Ramsey
This
case.
is not the first case of something like this where we've kind of talked about where there's some stuff going on behind the scenes. When this comes up, it really makes you question. I mean, again, my biggest thing is scrutiny. Everything should be able to stand up against scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
We've been saying that since episode 1 of Casewalker Chronicles, okay? Because in my opinion, if we're willing to, put someone in prison for the rest of their life for this specific crime, then we should be able to say, okay, we allow the public to question every person and everything, every step of this process, because that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Like if you're literally taking someone's life away, it should be, open and closed.
It's not though, and you know that.
I understand that. I'm just saying, like,
we want it to be that
right,
way.
but it's. Well, I think again when it comes to, because the question we ask, something like this happens, what does it do to public trust?
Yeah.
And I think for me personally, what it does is it's easy to just begin to say, okay, well, if this happened here, what else did it affect?
The butterfly effect.
Because it's like, okay, well, and I'm just saying general, okay?
Yeah.
But let's say I touched 10 pieces of evidence.
I have so many issues with this case.
And it is in theory every piece of evidence I touched, so to speak, tainted.
What's okay?
Do we then go back and kind of start saying, okay, well, because what was it? What was the number? Like, potentially they said more than 1,000 potentially impacted cases.
Yeah.
So if we're talking between 2008 and 2023, that's a lot of
that
cases.
number being reported is because that's how many cases she worked on.
Right, but what I'm saying is what? So do you go back?
You would
and
hope
start,
that they're not having misconduct with everything that they touch.
And then let's put that into, when we started talking about in our last case, when we were comparing like Marley Kinney and Nolan Wells's toxicology, those reports, it makes sense now why we have backlog of cases and why things take so long to process. Because if we have already opened and closed a case and then something like this happens and we start going back and reopening, or not reopening, but taking a finer tooth comb over some of these older cases, there's no wonder nothing ever really, because it's just like, and I think, and I will say this, and I'm not trying to be mean, and I'm not trying to do anything, I'm not putting down any profession, but it's like, the majority of people go to work Monday through Friday or whatever your set time of work is, your normal work. We've talked about this, Nick and I have talked about this in a couple of other cases and regard to professions where people kind of get in that, and this is going to sound bad, but when I was going to work, it was just like there wasn't really anybody's life on the line. So you could kind of just go through the motions, go with the flow, kind of, you know what I mean? Like you go in, you clock in, you do your thing, and you go home. And you don't really think about law enforcement, first responders, things like that. They don't get that, in my opinion, they don't get that luxury. I don't feel like those
nurses.
are the type.
You don't get that. Doctors.
You
don't
can't
get that
just
luxury,
go in and go about your day.
You have to be a different type of person to have those.
And that's why I think, when it comes to these people, like, and I'm not trying to be mean in any way, but like you think about a lab, somebody that's just processing evidence, they're just running this report. Is that because it becomes such like a mundane task? Well, pick this up and put it in here and run this test. And you're so far disconnected from the actual case itself.
Unfortunately, you can equate that to the people at McDonald's that can't flip a burger.
I don't think that's the case.
I
don't,
do,
because I think that,
100%.
I don't know anybody that personally works in a lab, but I'm just thinking in my head, because you are not necessarily front line, do you become, so to speak, disconnected where it's just your day to day and it's easy to just, but then again, I think in my head, if it's a pattern, like I do things. So, I mean, I think everybody's got this. Okay. Maybe I
want to know about what this is. John Ramsey has renewed his push for outside genetic genealogy testing, confirmed directly. He told Fox News on July 12th, he wants an independent private lab, not CBI, to run forensic genetic genealogy on the case's existing DNA profile.
Is that he has not had the most faith in CBI.
Okay.
So every time there's another anniversary that comes along or something like that, and he does interviews with people, he has continued to push for private companies to do investigations, to do research.
Her undergarments that she was wearing, and because there was an unknown DNA profile, I remember now. Holy crap. I don't know why. My brain just completely...
How do you not see what I mean? There's so much in here that I can't pull.
Right.
Like the case
and
knowledge.
You just reminded me. I remember now that they looked into the manufacturer of the undergarments, of her undergarments.
I'm glad you said undergarments. I was going to say underwear because I don't like the word panty.
I remember this now. It was a huge deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Gosh.
Hello.
That's why I was confused. I was like, what is he wanting genetic genealogy for?
I guess I'm going to have to start putting like side notes in for you so you know what's going on.
Seriously, I need footnotes or something. But yeah, now I remember they talked a lot about they were wanting to look into that because they were wanting to look into every little possible forensic analysis they could.
Again,
because it's still never really
but in my
evolved to anything. And I don't know that viewers really know that because that's not a detail that really was really publicized because it was a string or a straw that they were drawing at. So
when it comes to so many years after a case, I mean, we talked about this, and I don't remember which episode, but we talked about memory, and we talked about something. So
mine's gone.
When we, prime example, when we talk about things at this point, and I don't remember, what was this? What did I say? This was 96 is when this happened?
Yeah.
Like, how many, was it 20 years?
30.
30? Obviously, I'm not a math person, but 30 years, he doesn't remember what we did yesterday.
Yeah.
So he's not going to remember.
I don't sleep much.
And that's the kind of thing that we talked about. It's the same type of thing. Otherwise, I mean, my personal opinion on this case, the investigation, and I mean like the findings, like, let's just invite all of our family over to the crime scene.
You gotta...
Come on over.
Stop. Because
I'm just saying, because I don't have a calculator. Exactly.
Don't say that, because coming from an investigator's
I gotta pop my hip.
standpoint who's been to crime scenes, active crime scenes, it's chaotic.
Okay.
It is. I'm sorry.
So
it is
as an investigator, I'm just gonna stop.
No,
I'm gonna
stop, because I have been to a murder crime scene.
But I think there is a standard knowledge. There's a standard operation
of what people think happens. Yes.
Well, I don't think that you're there picking people up, moving them around.
Understand that investigators weren't there initially before they were moved.
The first time.
Right.
I'm talking about the second time.
Yes, they were there. He shouldn't have done
It
that.
was a she.
Well, John moved her first.
I get that. I fully understand, because if I find my child, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
No, we're not talking about the case a lot. We're just some of the evidence.
People are probably going to come after me for everything that I say, and that's okay.
Sorry.
What do you do?
This segment is evidence of the night.
And again, that's a perfect thing. It is
we're
evidence.
going back to what this segment is, not the case. So.
But again, in reference to this, how in the world is any of the evidence technically relevant, and how can we even trust any of the evidence when it's a hot mess?
Well, that and
how can you trust it if they are?
You have a forensic analyst who's been found guilty of.
And I will say
all these things.
I will say,
who worked on it.
In all honesty, at this point, an analyst is different than like
a crime scene investigator. Yeah.
So if you have like a crime scene tech and you have an analyst, they can you can move around within. So say you worked for this company for 20 years, you may have started out as this, and then you moved to that, and then you moved blah 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 blah. You've moved all these different jobs. But in theory, when I think analyst, I think of like myself, where I am analyzing, and I look at things differently because it's from an analytical standpoint. So in my head, when I see this and it says an analyst, if you're just analyzing, say, for instance, the report, that's different than like, oh, she was the tech that collected it.
Even still, they're automatically held to a higher standard. When the outlets disagree,
so your red flag.
How to read the story yourself.
This is going to be, so if you remember way back when the Casewalker Chronicles started, our preview or our premiere was that we did a red flag. We did a different red flag, and people loved the red flags. So we are bringing back the red flag series, and we are doing it particular style. So at the end of every live episode, we will give you a red flag, and tonight's red flag is
the disagreement. The Marley Kinney case. One outlet named her sister as the GoFundMe organizer using one name. Her own obituary lists a different sister's name. Two sources, two different facts. No way for us to independently confirm which is right. We're not naming either on air until it's resolved.
There is also a second layer to tonight's red flag, and it's a different problem worth knowing about. So Newport, Kentucky ended its flock camera pilot program on July 14th, a story we first covered all the way back on episode 1. The city's own official announcement, the actual press statement, quoted word for word by multiple outlets, never states how many cameras were involved. You only get a number if you go find separate town hall coverage, which consistently says 17 cameras were piloted, narrowed down to 6. So your red flag tonight is if you are seeing multiple stories where the details are different, or say, for instance, numbers are different, that would be a red flag, and you should probably do some extra research on the topic.
Yeah, Kitty is the clean example of tonight's headline. Two outlets, two different facts, genuinely unresolved.
Yeah, and what was, so my thing for that, there is a GoFundMe for that case, and I was going to discuss it, but then when I pulled the obituary, I was like, wait a minute, these don't match. I'm not saying that anyone's wrong. I'm not saying that she couldn't have multiple siblings or anything like that. What I'm just saying is I looked at that and I was like, wait, these names are not the same thing. I was just like, okay, I'm just not going to say it because I didn't want to send people to something that.
Yeah, no.
So, and that happens. That was just a quick example, which sounds bad, but there's a lot of things out there where you could kind of go around in circles because the information's not always the same. So,
talk to them.
Are you going away?
She's pouting. Like, legitimately pouting.
I hear her whining.
Oh.
I know. I really wanted to share the information, and then I was like, wait, this doesn't. And again, I'm not saying that it was anything nefarious, anything like that. I'm just saying that's a red flag. That's one of the things that I look for when information or numbers or names don't line up. And, you know, we've talked about that before. Prime example is when we're doing like a records search and we're looking at like a case, like a docket. I'm looking for somebody's case. And say, for instance, their names, there's, you know, I'm just going to say it. Say it's John Smith. That's a very fairly common name. You look at it and there's like 50 John Smiths. So you need some other identifiers to narrow it down.
Yeah.
So that's why I tell people don't always just take what you see and run with it. Try to corroborate the evidence across multiple sources. Okay. So now you can go back in there. So,
well, I was going to say the whole point of this segment and honestly of the show is we're not telling you what's true. We're showing you how we figured out what's contested versus what's confirmed. So you got to do the same thing.
And a lot of times, for me personally, when I'm going through stuff and I find stuff that doesn't match, if I kind of go, and it's an endless loop sometimes because it's like, okay, well, you go to this news reporting and that news reporting and you try to find the press release and you try to go to the like the actual, like you can find press releases, but they're not always linked to the actual, so say it's a police department, they might not have anything on their website. And it's like, well, is this a legitimate press release from this specific organization when it's not even on their website?
There's so much... I'm not going to say misinformation out there. It looks like reliable information, but it can't be verified. So just
against our standards, I think, because like that's for me, like, and next thing you know, I'll have 50 tabs open because I've gone through all these places trying to click, and then I don't even remember what I got down some rabbit hole and don't even remember what I was trying to verify. And I'm just like, well, we're not going to include that in tonight's segment because I got 10 sources here and they all say something different.
I will say that's what makes it very difficult to do what we're trying to do, and that is to be able to provide information that is hopefully relevant and to the best of our sources and reporting accurate. That's now, yes, the particulars, especially we give some of our opinions and our analysis of different things, but we tell you what those things are and we let you know that, okay, this is what we believe.
Yeah.
But one of the things that makes it very difficult is having the right information and wanting to present the right information, because there's a lot of stuff that we don't talk about because we don't have all the facts and we don't want to make
add to the noise.
Right. And we don't want to make our educated opinion on misinformation because it's just pointless, which is what a lot of people do out there is they add their spin on information that they got from the telephone game.
Ugh.
So that's ultimately what it comes down to with the red flag segment is we want to see those things that, hey, this stuff is getting put out there, but maybe you want to take a look at it a little bit more. So those were the two things tonight.
Did either of the places that you're listening, say you have two different sources of information, do either one of them cite a primary document or a named official? See if a third outlet breaks the tie. So if I've got A, B, if I look up C, can they corroborate either one of those?
Right.
So Then hold it loosely. And then, like, if there's an omission, what I like to say is I'm like, okay, well, why would we omit that information? And so say, for instance, it's a press release and they're omitting something. They probably don't want that information out, or they don't have the information at hand.
Or a reliable source, or it could be a lot of things.
So put a little bit of thought into that part of it, because, and for me, what I say,
20,000 likes.
yay, thank you. What I like to say when it comes to sources is I like to say the ones that are reputable. And what is a reputable source? I say, so like if we're talking about legal, I use a lot of LexisNexis, Westlaw,
just case law in general.
Case law, yeah. And I will go to the state. So I look at the state website, or if we're talking about like, oh, that was scary.
Come here, lay down.
She like wove around behind the camera, and I was like, don't pull the cord. But so I look at stuff like that. And I try to, if I'm going to try to report, so to speak, on something, I try to go with like law enforcement's direct. So if we're talking FBI, I go to their website, try to pull it. If it's not there, or again, you know, the old docket system. I love the docket system. I have a lot of bookmarks.
So tonight, we kind of changed it up a little bit, and this is what we will be continuing moving forward. We had 4 segments tonight.
And each segment had a different takeaway.
Yes.
And what I am trying to get you, we are trying to get you. We're not just telling you what's true, because quite honestly, in the scheme of things, do any of us really know what's true? What we're trying to get you to see is we're showing you how to figure out what's contested versus confirmed. So you can do the same thing next time you're reading a headline on your own, because so much of what people do is they take what they see and they run with it. And it is, in fact, the telephone game. So think with a little bit deeper train of thought, I like to say. I'll say at this point, if there's anything that anybody wants us to discuss, please give us a DM. I've got the Casewalker Chronicles website, and I also have Money Trail website. So I think there's like contact us forms on pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Send us whatever. Well, not whatever, but
don't.
You know, within reason. And at this point, I will say that I think that episode 9 is coming to a close. So I appreciate all of you for being here, all of the shares, all of the likes. We got finger hearts, we got heart me's, we got roses. We appreciate all of it. And again, we do have our merch. So if anyone is looking for a clear as mud merch t-shirt that I personally designed, I think they're fantastic.
Go
check out our link tree. I think all of our links and everything are in there. At this point, we're going to try to give you back a little bit of your Friday night. So headlines end.
The details begin.
We'll see you Monday. Follow, share. I lost my spot.
And find everything else.
Schedule, merch, coffee at our link tree.
Our opinion.
Our analysis.
Not legal advice.
Thanks for walking the cases with us. We'll see you Monday night, 9 p.m. for the particulars.